I think we ought to start now. It's okay. Is almal reg? Okay. Good evening and welcome to the Western Cape team's joint presentation on suggestions for you to do before the school year ends. If you wish to communicate with us, at the bottom of the screen, there's options. Move your cursor along the bottom of your screen and that options will appear. And please post all your questions in the Q&A box. We will answer them at the end of the session. Tony.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining us. I know it's 6 o'clock and some ladies have told us that they would love to be here, but they actually have to be cooking. So thank you very much for postponing your cooking for a little while. Thank you for joining us. We hope that our presentation is going to be useful to you. But let me first of all introduce the team. You can see on your screen our Provincial Manager, Henry Botha. Unfortunately, he can't join us this evening, but he has apologized and he wishes you all well as you almost hurtling like a barrel down a hill to the end of the year. We hope, however, that what we say tonight will put a little bit of, let's say, the brakes on that hurtling so that you're more confident, less anxious. Our admin officer, Ronelle Bourneman, that many of you will have had contact with because of the payments and that kind of thing. Our manager of the South African Organises Trust, Dani van Wyk. Now, I haven't seen him. I don't think he's able to join us this evening. But let me introduce to you, first of all, the lady who spoke a moment ago in a mellifluous voice, Santi van Tonda. She's our legal eagle. She is a lawyer, but she also has a heart of gold, and so she serves the people in the Overberg area. You can see on the far end then Deputy Provincial Manager Fernando Tully. He's situated in George and he looks after the Karoo and the Eden district. Remember, we have been allocated essentially the education districts to look after. Andre Franken. Andre is in Stellenbosch and he looks after part of the east and part of north. I'm Tony Marshall. I look after, for my sins, the wonderful Afrikaans people of the West Coast and the as wonderful people of Central. Ladies and gentlemen, our presentation is about to start, and we have mentioned that we go barreling along towards the end of the year, and you're experiencing all sorts of pressures, and we don't need to remind you of them. Probably the most important thing is not to slow down, but to finish strong. As an SGB, as an SMT member, to finish strong, and to finish strong means that you leave a legacy that people respect, and in fact you leave the situation in a better way than you found it. So, over to Santi to start for us.
When you started 3 years ago, you had set some goals, and I know it's the end of the year, and SGBs wants to pass on to 2021 as few mistakes as possible. It has indeed been a tough year, and the new year will have plenty of challenges of its own. So after the 2018 SGB election, certain goals were set, and we are looking to a few of them. Assess the progress of projects undertaken in your team and aim to complete them before the end of the term of office. We also advise our governing bodies to review all the policies regularly. They should be all completely updated by the end of your 3-year term. Check our website to see which of our policies have been updated and try to work through them before your term ends. As tempting as it may be, do not postpone, as next year is an election year and recruiting and input to the new SGB group will take up a great amount of time. And then lastly, make sure you have updated your SGB staff service agreements. Hopefully all negotiations and consultation have been completed for next year's appointments. I'm specifically mentioning all fixed term contracts. The same goes for the service provider agreements.
Ladies and gentlemen, Santi's mentioned reviewing the SGB performance. Now, unfortunately, in some schools, the SGB is a kind of revolving door. But what we want you to do is to review so that you have a file ready for the next group. So, the SGB, I'm sure, and certainly the school principals have had a functionality tool in chunks. Bottom line, though, is that it is a useful assessment. And the most important element of that is to be honest, to be transparent, and to say, all right, what were the capacities that we've had? What were the constraints that we'd experienced? And then bearing in mind that if you're going to be doing a report for the next SGB, that file that you compile is so important that it is full, honest, and clear. Also in terms of your strategic plan. The performance is not difficult to do if you think about it. At every one of your governing body meetings, you've had reports from your committees. I've put over there the 6 that are probably generic to every SGB. But more importantly, each one of those committees will have delivered some kind of report at every one of your meetings. Now, cherry pick from those so that you can have an easy and, let's say, a report that is filled with integrity to the new people. Because you know what January stands for? January comes from Janus. Janus was supposed to be the Greek god that looked both forward and back. So let your file be a backward look and to some extent, and we'll come to it in a minute, a forward look. What I mean by that is if you're transparent and you talk about the work in progress, that's wonderful. But don't neglect your successes. You will have had successes. You will have had projects that have been very good. There have also been unsuccessful projects. I need not mention the kind of thing that happened just this year, but not only in 2020, in 2019, 2018, there would have been grand schemes that unfortunately didn't work out. Probably the most important thing about that is if you have works in progress, that you then look as an indicator, a flag to the next governing body so that they can anticipate to continue that as part of their projects, so that the handover is a seamless and not and you minimize the dip in productivity, the dip in continuity, minimize that to the extent that you can. The progress report that I mentioned, bear in mind that the SGB purpose is serving the best interests of the school exclusively. Exclusively. Now, that has meant then that when people have been involved in good relations with candidates or with service providers, they would have recused themselves. And so your SGB has had an integrity that it can protect. And that the decisions that you've made, by and large, have depended on collaboration and consensus. And your honest SWOT analysis that you did at the start, or may not have done at the start, can now be supplemented by a review of a SWOT analysis. And it's not difficult to do that. Beg your pardon. For instance, you can maximize the strengths and the opportunities. Just think in terms of distance learning that so many of us have been forced to maximize. And I'm looking at us here using Zoom that we would not have thought about not even 10 months ago. So you maximize your strengths and you maximize your opportunities. You minimize the weaknesses and the threats. And sometimes it's excellent if you can flip the threats into opportunities. Like this wonderful thing that I'm sure I don't mind mentioning, and that is that in platooning, as exhausting as it's been for your school, it's also meant that your youngsters, with great respect, their parents might be listening, are better behaved and the learning process is enhanced. So wonderful, wonderful, flipping the threat into an opportunity. When you're doing your progress report, use pictures, use graphs, celebrate whatever you can, because a picture obviously paints 1,000 words.
Ladies and gentlemen, what a year. What a year 2020 has been. We all agree that 2020 was indeed a strange year, a challenging and often traumatic year, where we once again realized the importance of sound relationships, something that we should value and appreciate much more. The SA Schools Act is very clear when it states that the governing body stands in a position of trust towards the school. The SGB and the school must evaluate themselves to what extent they in the past year engaged with one another from a position of trust and respect and openness. Sound relationships is not a quick fix. It takes time and effort to develop. And to nurture and strengthen good relationships, we advise that all interested parties and stakeholders be regularly informed and kept on board. It is in fact all about our school. Appreciate every role player. Acknowledge all contributions. And then we have a lesson from the Harvard University which says, it is not about the rules and the regulations within the organization. It is all about the way people work together.
Accurate and secure record keeping will be your legacy, and the new SGB will really be eternally grateful to you. The minutes of the past 3 years are a good indication of what was planned and what was the outcome. As Tony said, it serves as a good overview of the SGB's efforts. Of course, the financial records reflect much more than just the finances. They are the funding of the strategic plan. An asset register and an inventory is essential. Committee minutes indicate their activities and recommendations. With the competition regulations in mind, record all trustworthy suppliers.
There will definitely be new people serving on the governing body in 2021. We advise, therefore, that you start right now and headhunt for willing people with the necessary expertise to avail themselves to serve on the governing body. This is not a promise or a guarantee that they will be elected. This is merely an invitation and a request to people to avail themselves to serve on the governing body. And for this purpose, identify persons who share the vision, the values, and the ethics of your specific school. It is a serious misunderstanding when people think governing body is a position. Not at all, and not intended either. Serving on the governing body is a verb. It is hard work and it is commitment. Equally important, wrong motives and hidden agendas are a sure recipe for troubled relationships and conflict within the SGB, something the school community can ill afford and which doesn't serve the best interest of your school. Be aware of the strength and the potential of diversity in your group. Don't just tolerate diversity, celebrate diversity. Also cherish and enhance inclusivity. And then finally, always be assured of the continuous training and support provided by FEDSAS. We are here for you. Our aim in this regard is to prevent good people like yourselves from doing stupid things, and also to take the governing body from good to great.
Ladies and gentlemen, Fernando is a very special person. He's told you we're here to prevent you from doing stupid things. But there's also something else that he hasn't said this evening that I thought he said in the past, and that is that being a member of the governing body is not a status symbol. On the contrary, governing body should be a verb. It's what you do because of who you are that makes so much difference. So let me carry on with this. Your handover documents, as I said, should be in a file. And if you've got a file, then obviously the SGB chair's report can be cherry-picked from everything else of all the other reports that are easily available. Now, more than that, the governing body constitution, the governing body code of conduct, the budget, but also the financials. I think it's very important, and certainly FEDSAS supports me in this, that the school governing body must know what the position is. With great respect, if one looks at the trauma, the heartbreak, the conflict that occurred because governing bodies hadn't anticipated the school fee payments falling off a cliff so that they could not pay their employees. The number of governing bodies that had to go into austerity measure, and that had a massive, massive impact on the well-being of schools. So, ladies and gentlemen, the budget and the financials are absolutely critical. People must know what they have. As Santia said, the budget puts money where the strategic plan has decided it ought. And then bear in mind that the school management program is exactly that. It runs absolutely in parallel with the strategic plan. Although, of course, the school management program is massively influenced by what WCED requires. But it's important that people know, all members of the governing body know what the school management program is, so that they know the difference between governance and management, that they don't overstep their role and suddenly want to run in the lane of the manager. Rather, support the manager in everything that the manager and the management team do in order to achieve what is in the best interest of the school. Let me say something that's absolutely obvious, but it's easy to forget. The massive intellect, I think, of CEO of Berkshire Hathaway has said that if he could have his life over and again, and remember he's now 94, he said he would spend more time reflecting. So, isn't it time that we started reflecting on what the lessons were from COVID-19? By all means, we accept that it's not over at all. Brian Schroeder, yesterday in our meeting with him, commented that he dreads a potential surge in May of next year. And that's altogether understood because we're South Africans and we are rather blasé about threat. So what are the lessons learned from COVID-19? And shouldn't that be included in the handover documents? We've spoken about SWOT analysis and strategic plan, the minutes, the committees and activities. And then finally, in that handover document, ladies and gentlemen, there should be the school improvement plan, the functionality tool that we referred to earlier, the academic review, or the APIP as it's sometimes called, the 043, sometimes called the 043, which is the quarterly response from the SGB and from the managers to the WCED, the audited financials, and of course, as Santi has mentioned, the updated policies. Don't hesitate, please, to call on any of us if you have updated policies that you'd like us to review. We can't promise that it's going to happen overnight, but certainly we will do our level best to look at them and refer to our legal eagles, first of all, Santi, as well as the legal eagles in Bloemfontein.
Our last slide. When the school reopens in 2021, you are in the final straight of a marathon, as your term of office will be finishing soon. Some of you and some of us are already counting down the days, but hopefully others are considering making themselves available again for these huge SGB responsibilities. As people socialize in December during this festive season around the braai, it's a good time and to make new plans. And a lot of enthusiasm and excellent plans will actually be hatched around those braai fires. People will regain their energy for the new year, and they will try new things. So this is a very good opportunity to inspire them towards the mindset of being potential SGB members. Remember that schools must indicate to the HOD the mode of election they will undertake, not less than 30 days prior to the date of the election. This means around 1 February, as the date was set in the Gazette, that the election date will be between the 1st and the 31st of March. It's wise to decide on that date now and imprint this date in the minds of all eligible voters and potential SGB members. Send out a newsletter to the school community and communicate these 2021 election date. Note that every eligible parent of a learner officially enrolled at a school is entitled to vote for parent members of the governing body. The advent of COVID-19 has provided the educational sector with the opportunity to modify our election process. Next year, schools will be offered a choice to select an election mode that suits their individual circumstance. Traditional nomination and election meeting, and then the full day elections. A few schools have already tried them, and then the new e-elections. And I'm very excited about this. This is a combination between the full day elections and the e-elections, as not all people have data, and the schools will have programs or computers ready at the school for people to come and vote. So I think that's an excellent opportunity to get all people included. Encourage parents who do not want to be elected on the governing body to make their contribution as co-opted members and to make themselves available to serve on a committee where they can share their expertise. I think it's really important that people understand how much we need those input in our schools, all the more.
Ladies and gentlemen, we come basically to the end of our presentation, and we hope you found it useful. But we would welcome your questions. While you're sending the questions in, you can send them in the chat box at the bottom of your screen. We would welcome that. Not only that, if you like, we can get our tech wizard, Elrieta, even to open your mic and even open your screen. Now, how's that? So that you can feel what it feels like from our point of view, where we're frightened as can be. I see Marius Ehrenreich is proudly displaying his wonderful 4x4. Marius, it looks as though you've got a Land Rover there. Think of those less privileged, and don't make us all feel insignificant. Marius is the principal of an excellent school. Ladies and gentlemen, let me say two things, and then we'd welcome your input. First of all, please know that we are here for you to try to resolve anything that could prevent you from doing what Fernando says is something stupid. Now, you're not going to think it's stupid. You might feel that there's a tremendous amount of pressure on you to take a decision. And our advice is slow down, ask us, we'll try to help. We'll really try to help. Second thing, as part of our meeting with Brian Schroeder yesterday, we spoke about the training for SGBs. Now, what we'd hope is that when you do your recruitment, you also call on us. We don't mind being of assistance in helping you. Mr. Schroeder said something quite interesting. He would like us and other governing body organizations, by all means, to collaborate more with the district officials so that we're all on the same page and we're all saying the same thing. And let me reassure you that Mr. Jantjies has been tasked with having the regulations for the Western Cape, and sometimes they differ from the national regulations, but Mr. Jantjies has been tasked and he's committed to having the regulations ready on the first day of school. But as Santia said, that gives you very little time if you're going to go into school on the 25th of January and your election is on the 1st of March, to do recruitment and make sure that everything is in place. So we're there for you. We will not let you down. We will really try to do something in terms of your recruitment. Not only that, after the election, there are two things that we commit ourselves to. First of all, working with the SGB in terms of the training that they might need. And we know there are two things that come up very, very, very often as problems. First of all, financial management. Second of all, the difference between money management and governance. The difference between management and governance is absolutely critical, and we're more than happy to help with that. Allow us to help with those relationships. But the second thing is we'd love to be involved with your RCL. Not directly with your RCL if that is something that you're a little concerned about, but then at least help us to help your TLO to feel confident, to see what's happening generally. And again, we've spoken to Kubeshini Govender. You all know Kubeshini. She's a dynamo at head office, and the RCL is under her jurisdiction. We'd love to help. So, call on us. I don't know if my colleagues have anything to say, or whether
Can I just add, Tony? Sorry, Tali, I just want to add, please read our latest newsletter. There's a lot of information. Head office they put a lot of effort into the new training program, which will kick off in the middle of February already. So check that dates and see the newsletter. I think it's 62. Newsletter 62 is correct. Can I ask you, Andre, if you can just read in the chat box? Mr. Jonker said something about the unrelated to workshop. As SGB, we got communication yesterday afternoon about PEP recruitment and documents needing to be submitted by tomorrow at 12. Unfortunately, as an SGB, we won't have the opportunity to meet before tomorrow at 12. So what would happen now regarding PEP as we responsible for recruitment?
Santi, can I just say our CEO is present in the room. Welcome, Mr.
He corrected me there on newsletter 63. I'm very sorry. Op die vingers getik so voor almal. Sorry, just check newsletter 60, but check 62 as well. Sorry, can you help us with that that workshop he's talking about in the chat box?
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm speaking on behalf of my colleagues if I say that some schools have been very concerned about I'm reluctant to use the word rigmarole, but the amount of admin that's involved in recruiting and then eventually employing these youngsters. We mentioned that to Mr. Schroeder yesterday, And he fully understands that the kind of problem that everybody is facing. Number one, the admin, the recruitment, the narrow band of people that you can recruit and eventually employ. But he's asked us to be South Africans. And I think this is what the state president is asking us. So when Mr. Schröder is saying, do the effort, I'm inclined to feel, wow, he's actually saying to me, do the effort. Find the youngsters so that they can get, first of all, mentoring from you, can support, and just think in terms of psychosocial support that they're going to be getting as part of your school. Secondly, and very importantly, they're going to be paid some money. And we know what youngsters do. They don't have retirement funds like old guys like me. I've got my fingers crossed when I say that, because we know what's happened to retirement funds. That said, ladies and gentlemen, we do need to kickstart our economy, because I've just been watching ENCA, and our unemployment rate is, the words that they used, a ticking time bomb. Let's give our youngsters some sense of capacity, some sense of self-worth, and then some disposable income that can help. So that's my response. And I think Mr. Schröder would actually call on all of us to go that extra mile, if it is an extra mile, to go that extra mile and do what is required for the country at this stage.
Tali, jy wou iets gesê. You wanted to say something.
Just a reminder to all the participants and to spread the word that we will have a follow-up or a last session next Tuesday, a specific question and answer session on this. Any questions coming from the presentation or what you experience at schools, please forward those questions to any of the FEDSAS colleagues, and we will deal with that next Tuesday, the same time at 6 o'clock the afternoon.
Okay. Thank you, Tony. Tali. Someone is asking, can the dates not be changed? We will communicate about that, but I'm not sure where. I also wondered what the assistants will do from the 1st to 15th of January, and then in that short time frame. So, Tony, Andre, I don't know if you want to give some input there. And then also someone is asking about a conversation about the challenges played at Brackenfell. I think that is this a main felt. So I don't know if someone, Mr. Colditz, wants to sit in.
We asked the same question to Mr. Schröder yesterday, but according to him, the dates are not going to change.
Okay. Meneer Colditz, can we bring you in, Aureta? That will be very nice. Wow, look at the background. That is just not fair.
I have taken Tony's advice to reflect.
I think I must reflect also. Can I come and reflect with you, Mr. Colditz?
You're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah, let me start with the last question, and that is the issue of the appointment of these assistants. The problem is that the money must be spent within the fiscal year before the 31st of March. So it is not so much at this stage giving these people actual work to do during December and January, but just providing them an income of some sorts, whilst at the same time being productively active. So that is why it's too late. But I mean, this program was only announced towards the end of October. And at that stage, I said to the DG of Basic Education, it was too little, too late. But because of government programs and government's red tape, it took quite a while for this to come through to us. I actually didn't want to come in at this stage. I wanted to come in at the end just to say a great effort, Western Cape team, very proud of you, very proud of you. And then 3 other observations. The first being that how can you say a person who's not driving a Toyota is a privileged person with reference to the picture I see in Marius's profile?
Yes, I just wanted to correct Tony there, Mr. Colditz, about the Land Rover and the Land Cruiser. There's a big, big difference.
Yeah.
Mr. Colditz, would you like to have any input? Is dit nie die plek vir Brackenfell nie? Wat is FEDSAS?
Well, what the Brackenfell is actually not a school affair. What happened there is a private affair. I've been asked questions about teachers attending. You can't tell as a school governing body, you can't tell a teacher which church to attend in his or her private capacity on Sunday. And in the very same sense, you can't tell a teacher which private parties he or she should attend. It's got nothing to do with the school. It was not arranged by the school. It is very, very unfortunate and in fact deplorable that it is being abused for political purposes at this stage. I've spoken to the attorney acting for the school governing body today, and we're in constant communication. The problem is that if this type of intrusive protesting is not stopped, it can actually disrupt the rest of this matric exam. It can interrupt school activities. It can even lead to interruptions into the school governing body elections next year. So we have to carefully consider how we as FEDSAS support the school governing body in protecting the interests of the learners, in protecting the best interest of children, and protecting children's access to basic education in the process without interruptions by politicians. And we've seen in 2018, Swaziland happened, just when school governing bodies were about to be elected. And again, we can expect in 2021 that this will happen. So we'll have to manage the situation very carefully and make sure that political motives don't interrupt education, don't interrupt school governing body elections and our own induction programs in the next year. Then finally, just two other observations from my side. Both Tony and Tali have referred to two very important principles, and that is whatever the school governing body does, it must act in the best interest of the school because of the relationship of trust between the governing body and the school. So in your handover report, or whatever you'd like to call it, there should be a closing paragraph in which the governing body states to the incoming governing body what they have done to promote the best interests of the school. And then secondly, the very, very important principle that great boards are characterized by the fact, and so great school governing bodies also, that they operate in a virtuous cycle of respect, trust, and openness. So your second point that you need to emphasize in your handover report is what this governing body has done to promote the operation of that virtuous cycle of respect, trust, and openness. And if you're able to do that, and if you're able to demonstrate how you did it, then you can be sure that you'll have been a successful school governing body. Thanks, Santi. Thanks, Tony. Thanks, Tali. Thanks, Andre. That's my contribution. I'm now going further into reflection mode.
Thank you. Thank you for visiting us.
Santi, I wonder if we can, first of all, say thanks very much, Mr. Colditz. We appreciate your cameo there. But there are two, I think, important questions that need answering. Galaxy Tab, in his anonymity, or her anonymity, says, the money was wasted from his perspective, her perspective, a full month's salary for a few days. Now, this was raised with Mr. Colditz, I beg your pardon, with SG Brian Schroeder. They themselves felt that it could have been better spent, frankly, in supporting SGB employees who are really under stress. So he did mention that. But in their wisdom, the government has decided otherwise. And I think we should support that. It's there. And this is the maturity that I think COVID-19 is requiring of us. And please, I'm not casting aspersions, Galaxy Tab, S3 nogal. Just to say that we must work with what we have. And it's something that we are so proud. Not only the FEDSAS principles, but so many other principles have done that. You work with what you have and you make, absolute magic. The second question is from Susan. I think it's Susan. It may be Susan. Is there a possibility?
And she's from Carpe Diem.
Okay. Oh, yes.
Susan
Okay.
Yes.
Is there a possibility that these contracts will be extended? The answer from Mr. Schroeder was a flat no. The money has run out. We were particularly worried. I see some of my folk from the West Coast are here, and thank you very much. Particularly where people are in contract appointments, when that contract runs out, unfortunately, it will not be extended. Okay, it will not be extended, and that's rather sad. I agree. So,
Tally, Fernando, jy wou nog iets gesê?
Ek wil verwys dit na Susan se vraag en dan dink ek ook môreoggend 8:00 on radio, Mr. Colditz with Lynette Francis Purin on inclusivity in schools, worthwhile to tune in and to make time for those who can afford it.
Yeah. Well, that's a wonderful intro, ladies and gentlemen. I'm hogging the airtime while I've got it. I don't know whether you've seen the LGBTQI policy. Now, if you think in terms of inclusivity, this is it. And once again, in the South African context, it can be very, very challenging to some people. It's up to us to think of the range of normal and not say, this is, if it's not like me, it's not normal. I know Mr. Colditz was in an interview about this recently in the media. I don't know if I can still bring him back to talk about the LGBTQI Western Cape policy, because of course Western Cape is, dare I say it with such pride, streets ahead of everyone else. Mr. Colditz?
Yes,
Ooh,
just one correction, Tony. It's not a policy, it's guidelines at this stage, draft guidelines, which have not been finalized yet and published yet. But yes, I agree with you that Western Cape is way ahead of all the other provinces. But it is an extremely sensitive issue. Some of your schools in the Western Cape have dealt with it already and have dealt with it quite successfully. But there are indeed challenges if you go to the rural areas, more traditional areas. These are things that you don't even talk about. So indeed challenging and must be dealt with very sensitively by school principals, particularly by school governing bodies. I'm grateful for the fact that it is not a policy or regulations, because the situation will differ in every school community. And you need to take your school community with you in applying those guidelines. Otherwise, you're going to have more protests outside of your gates and inside of the school if this is not dealt with very sensitively. So in the interview last night, there was one organization that said they were very unhappy with the fact that it was only guidelines. It should have been regulations. It should have been enforceable. But I think that would have been insensitive to the diversity of communities that we have in South Africa. So happy with the fact that it's guidelines, principals and school governing bodies are advised to have a look at those guidelines, even in draft form at this stage, and prepare themselves to implement those guidelines with the necessary sensitivity, and particularly the necessary sensitivity to every single learner in the school. Not only those that you regard as normal, but those that are not according to your understanding of normal are normal. And yeah, that's basically it.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Collins. Is daar iemand wat nog iets wil sê, bydra voor ons eindig? Andrei? Sorry. Tali? Okay, so we can say goodbye. Thank you very much for this opportunity, and stay well, fastbyt, almost there. Don't slow down. Tony, can you finish off, please?
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, thanks very much for attending. We are thrilled that you made the time to join us, and particularly the WCED people, the officials. Thank you very much. You've had a long day. It's a hectic time of year. But also, please send us via email. Just jot us a couple of words on an email of the kind of thing that you'd like us to do for you. Is this time good? It's not ideal, we know. But when is it better? Please give us an idea of the information that we give, whether that is useful to you. Give us an indication of how you would like us to change things. We're here for you. We really depend on you and that virtuous feedback loop to be able to serve you better. I'm so proud to be part of this FEDSAS group, ladies and gentlemen. Andre, thanks very much. Fernando, thanks very much. Santi, thanks very much. Ladies and gentlemen, and let me not hesitate to say, Elreta de la Rey, the techie wizard, always ready to assist. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, please send us an email. We look forward to receiving something from you. Thank you very much and good night.
Good night. Thank you. Bye.